Hail Internet, it's Paul, it's Matt, the Dork Lords. We are here today talking about the final 2 episodes of Season 1 of the Netflix show Dead Boy Detectives. The episode's entitled The Case of the Very Long Stairway and The Case of the Hungry Snake. Very plot heavy, a lot happens in these 2 episodes.
Yeah.
So we open episode 7 with the witch, Esther, shaking off her previous battle with the forest elemental, then venturing to the Cat King to learn more about Edwin. After torturing the Cat King for information, she learns that Edwin survived decades in hell. She sees Edwin's ability to withstand pain as something she can exploit for more power, which she does in episode 8. The majority of episode 7 is then Charles successfully rescuing Edwin from hell. We end the season with Nico seemingly sacrificing her life to save Crystal. Esther being dragged away to parts unknown by the goddess Lilith. Edwin and Charles getting a reprieve from the Lost and Found department due to their good works, finding resolutions for wayward ghosts. Crystal officially joins the detective agency after getting her memories back. The night nurse is now confined to Earth as their reluctant contact, and they're free to head back to England. The very last scene shows what appears to be Nico alive in the Arctic with the dandelion sprites holding the bear totem, perhaps a polar bear given the location, given to Nico by Tragic Mick, the human walrus, most awesome character in the show. All right, anyway, all that said, Paul,
Yes.
what'd you think of episodes 7 and 8 of Dead Boy Detectives?
I thought it was fine.
Okay.
I felt like, especially, 7 and 8, I was sort of used to the tone of the show. There were enjoyable bits. However, they're not really good at resolving things on that show, I'd say.
Oh, yeah? In what way?
I just, it's like the whole, I will take you back to, that was a technicality. Oh, okay. Now you're employees of the, like, oh my God. Okay. Yeah.
Well, they're trying to find a way to keep them on Earth, Paul, so that they're not, the show doesn't end.
Yeah, I know,
right?
but you want it to be more substantive than just,
Loopholes.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
You don't want it to happen. I don't think it should happen in one scene, and there should be ramifications that don't make it seem easy.
I will say on that point, I feel like part of the issue with that particular arc being messy, I think the night nurse's arc seems messy. Like, she started off as a practically evil villain. Like, back in the first episodes. I mean, she's, like, torturing people and stuff. So she became sympathetic towards our heroes when she finds out that Edwin's been by mistake.
And she got that ring.
Door open.
And
she got the ring. And then she kind of
flashes.
reverts back, though. She reverts back to, if not evil, at least by the rules. Yeah, unsympathetic administrator. Then she's like a reluctant subordinate. I just feel like the writers maybe lost the emotional thread of that particular character.
Well, it affects those main characters, though, and what their situation is. So, it's not just the character. It's the threat that is posed to Edwin and Charles.
Great point. She represents this, like, over-looming threat. Yeah.
And, so even though they didn't show too much of the Cat King, once he established the reason why Edwin had to stay. And they did some stuff which, was fine about
147 cats. I'm not buying it, but okay. That's fine.
Yeah.
Anyway,
right.
continue.
Yes. The Cat King being a part of Edwin's realization that he's gay. Which, is okay, I guess, but the fact that, if you're going to hell, there's no little spell's going to keep you out of there. And then once he's back, then it's, that's just all resolved and everything. And I guess it's nice. I mean, I like Nico, and I was, sort of feeling, wow, they killed her.
Right, I was too. I was like,
I'm not one of the people who actually feels like, oh, well, if they're not going to kill anybody, I guess this, there's no drama. I don't care about that. So they need to make something out of it, which, they have plenty of time in the second season if they get a second season.
And in a world where there's an afterlife, she could be any kind of spiritual entity too. So
yeah. So, it was okay. I'd say, 7.
Okay. So what was the spot? You mentioned there were some things that you liked. Was there a particular scene or something that was like, oh, that's a good example of something?
No, I'd say that, Esther trying to get her final revenge there, that was fine,
Okay.
And Charles deciding to go down there and everything and to go after him, I thought that was good.
It seemed to work. I mean, they built up that relationship to the point that was believable too. It wasn't just out of the blue. Charles was like, I'm going to go save him. Like, no. That guy would go.
They established it, and so going down there. So, there were good things in the episode.
I would say a scene that I thought was pretty effective, a couple of them, but one, when Edwin meets up with his torturer, Simon.
Yes.
In hell.
Yes.
And so this is the one who got him sent to hell.
Yeah.
And so we see at first that Edwin is judging him for his actions. Like, you deserve to be here.
Yes.
Then he has this somewhat, unexpected encounter with Despair, who we'll talk about in a second. But he realizes that his actions, like the Despair is watching what's happening because she's feeding off of his judgments, basically, of this. Yeah, you're making him feel terrible, and it's great. Despair. And so when he returns through the mirror, he then forgives Simon. And in fact, I think they each apologize to each other. I like that, the way that works.
Yeah, and he was able to move on as a result of that, which was good.
Right, which is interesting, too. So there's this blue light that comes, and he has a blissful look on his face. So, yeah, that's... I would say more than suggests. It basically says, oh yes, Simon is now redeemed, which is an interesting notion that, in hell, that it's not like a potential eternity, that you can actually, death can come for you in hell and take your soul away. Like, all right, good call. All right. like if the people, the souls in hell realized that actually there's a chance, there's hope for me to get out of this, they would be a completely different place, I think. But anyway. I thought that was a really effective scene, and it showed like this maturity and a willingness to forgive something that seems unforgivable in a way, for Edwin. I like that scene quite a bit. I also appreciated Crystal's confrontation with David the Demon. She ends up burying him in the pocket ancestral plane.
That was good. And partly for the reasons that I said in a way, and where it's like, okay, they came to a resolution, but there's more to come because that situation can't continue on.
They're like he'll kill the tree. So
that's fine that they resulted in that way, because it's like, okay, there will be consequences for what that.
Great point. Yeah.
Way. So
you bury the demon under the tree. Yeah, it's something that we conjectured over a couple of episodes ago. We conjectured over whether Crystal would discover that she was a bad person when she gets her memories back, she did.
Definitely did. Yeah.
I mean, she used her powers to kill at least one person. Which she's like, she sent a guy into traffic and he got killed. Yeah. So she's essentially like a street level supervillain. Because she has powers and she's like has malice, and you're like, oh god, okay. So that was an interesting little thing of note, and she's trying to cope with the fact that that's who she is. It's not like, oh, that's someone else, or it's like, no, this is me, and she's she's horrified by what she's done, but she's also like, do I deserve to be with these people? These people think I'm one person, but I'm not that person. But
so for me, I mean, fine if there's going to be a second season. I would hope that they actually do more to resolve that, because they are two different people. It's like,
you're right.
It's like, are we ever going to see an aspect of that other character? Because we really didn't. Up until now, like, wow, she was really bad.
You're right. You kind of get the feeling like, oh, the demon showed up for a reason. Yeah.
Maybe that's what they should do. Like, take the demon that was in her and put her in some other rich kid, and then, you know, have that person forget who they are so that they can ultimately remember that they were such a shithead, you know? It's like,
that's true. As like as a way of redeeming people is like, okay, we'll give you what you want most in some ways. But there's also that then moment where Crystal offers to remove Jenny's painful memories. So Jenny is like, look, I know about ghosts now, and I was possessed, and that's a tough thing to take. And so she's like, look, I could make you forget if you want. She said she'd rather live with the truth that the memories represent. And so I feel like that's part of Crystal's growth too, where she's like, okay, you know what? I'm going to live with these memories and move on. Which is an interesting, now that I'm saying this out loud, there's one of my favorite short stories of Neil Gaiman's is one called Murder Mysteries. And anyway, it's a little difficult to describe in a couple of sentences, but essentially there is a fallen angel who's the main subject of this thing, who has a mission on Earth. And his particular mission is to go around to people that are otherwise good people who did something, let's say evil. Like in the case we meet up with a guy who in some snapped at some point and killed his girlfriend. And so he removes the memory of this guy killing his girlfriend, so that he can just go on and live a life of somewhat like blissful ignorance. It's like this guy's form of redemption is to steal the memories of people, the memories that are holding them back, I guess, in a way. Anyway, so it feels like similar that Neil Gaiman maybe had this thought in mind of like, it's the memories. Without the memories, you can be this good person because you don't remember all this litany of terrible things you've done. I don't know. It's weird. I don't know. I don't know if that's connected, but it's weird. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that occurred to me, I don't think I ever mentioned it, was, you know, it's one of the problems of having a character who is not aware of the situation. So there was a number of episodes where she had to be frustrated. Whoa, who are you talking to? And blah, blah, blah. And boy, you're weird. I don't know if I'm going to kick you out. And so now that the season's over and she's seen that she's not, you know, is that now she's aware of it. So, you know, just she's not the Lois Lane anymore. At least, you know, she now knows what's going on.
Also, I suppose making her forget that she knows about ghosts would not make her not see ghosts. So she would then see a ghost the next day and be like, oh my God, ghosts are real. Like, okay, let me make you forget again. It's a continual process.
What is it, 40 dates or whatever?
Right. Also, though, it's interesting because, you know, so Nico couldn't see ghosts. Then she had this near-death experience. Then she could see ghosts. Right. Jenny couldn't see ghosts. So it seems fairly, like, I don't know, it's not like everybody in the world, but some percentage greater than zero of people have near-death experiences and so can see ghosts. It seems if you were walking down a town, there would probably be what? I don't know. 15% of the people could see you anyway. I don't know. It's like there'd be like, oh look, it's a ghost. Oh, you're not supposed to see me. It's supposed to be like one guy out of a million can see me, not a whole population.
Right. Well, anyway. That's what, you know, I guess made it so easy for Monty, you know, to fool them because it's like, oh, just another person who can see ghosts.
Yeah.
Nothing suspicious about that. No.
Yeah, right. that was weird too. Now, so Monty we see him like move the bag of holding closer to Charles. Yes. But I thought that maybe his redemptive moment was earlier, you know, a couple episodes back when he got killed or, you know, whatever. Esther turned him back into a crow. Right. It was like, oh, as punishment for turning against me, I'm turning you into a crow. Sure. But then in episode 7, I think he tells on, like, we see the crow fly off and Esther realizes that the guys are back in town or something. And I'm like, wait, did you just narc on the two guys that you were supposedly, like, you know, anyway. That was a little weird. I was a little confused.
I stopped caring about his soul as soon as he became a crow again.
Okay, so. Fair enough. All right. Fair enough.
I mean, because to me, that was another thing that I felt artificial. It's like it's the only thing they could think of was Crystal was too frantic to actually throw the bag place where Charles could get
it. Yeah, that was a little weird. Like, really? You brought it for him and you couldn't give it to him? Like, just hand it to him, maybe.
I think I would have preferred, like, for some reason, because he's strapped in, that it's harder for him to find exactly what he's looking for.
Sure, sure. Like, I can't open it or whatever. My hands, I don't know. Again, you conjectured we might see Jenny's stalker again, post-death. We did see Jenny Stalker. She was, like, hanging out on the stairway to hell. But it suggested perhaps she could return as some spectral figure.
I did not recognize her.
Yeah, that's who that was. They passed her twice.
I was just like,
up and down.
There's some woman that's there.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm like, why? How did she get trapped on the stairway? Anyway, but yeah, that was her. So
okay.
She's halfway to hell.
Well, good for her.
Highway to hell. Didn't really buy the scene. The scene I was waiting for. I was like, this show is setting up. Edwin confesses his love for Charles, and so they got that scene. They're coming out of hell.
We did,
and we got Edwin confesses that he loves Charles romantically, and then Charles diplomatically keeps him in the friend zone. And so I feel like most relationships would end at that point.
You do?
One side wants way more out of a relationship than the other. That usually doesn't bode well for their relationship.
Interesting.
Now, in this case, they're like, look, I like you. We're great. And, hey, I'm committed to you. Not in that way. But anyway, we can still be friends, right? I feel like most relationships would have a real hard time getting over that.
Yeah, no, I certainly feel like, that's the healthy thing to do.
Sure.
You know?
Yes.
And then, also, I feel like if you look at his personality, he just barely realized how he felt. They had spent all that time together. Him not saying a fucking thing.
Yep.
So it's entirely rational that Charles would feel that way. You could say, though,
from Charles's side, I get it.
Right, but then
I'm saying from Edwin's side,
Edwin feeling appreciative of the fact, because that's really the only connection, that the strongest connection he has to anybody is Charles, actually. So that's his motivation to maintain the friendship. So it's up to him to sort of realize that, that's the healthy thing. Maybe it's more common for people to be in that situation and then feel like, you know what, I can't be around you now because I have these feelings.
Yeah, I feel like that's a thing. I feel like that's more
that might be more common, but
yeah,
I think that I feel like from anecdotal evidence,
I got you. You're saying it's not completely out of bounds. That's a thing.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, it takes a certain maturity to sort of say accept that. So yeah,
it does, and as I've mentioned it before, I mean, Edwin is remarkably emotionally mature for someone who spent decades in hell after being tortured to death.
Yeah.
So good on him.
Yeah.
We got more mythological references. So Lilith, of course, which we also got in an animation sequence. So much like we had an animation sequence for the goddess Sedna, we got an animation sequence that was like for Esther and Lilith. So interesting little parallel there. Charles rightfully compares his situation to Orpheus and Eurydice when they're climbing the stairs out of hell, to which Edwin rightfully responds, well, that's not the best example to bring up because that ends in tragedy, so maybe don't make me the Eurydice in this situation. Anyway, some more fun mythological references.
Sure.
When Edwin is comforting Charles, another effective scene, Edwin arrives at a dying Charles.
Yes.
And chooses not to tell him, by the way, you're dying. Just let him... He says, it was always too late when I found you, and I just didn't tell you. I decided...
Oh, yes.
Why do that to you? So instead, he just reads to him, and he comforts him as he passes away. And so the book he's reading is... I looked it up, but they mention it in the thing. But it's The Eyes of Max Carados. It's a series of stories from 1914, so the time of Edwin's life. Okay. And it's about a blind detective. It's a series of detective short stories, essentially. So, kind of Anyway, so interesting little sideline.
Yeah.
So I mentioned I would talk about despair. So while in hell there, Edwin goes through the mirror and he meets up with despair.
Yes.
So this is another connection to the Sandman series.
Ah, okay.
Despair is one of the endless, like dream.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like destiny, dream, death, desire, despair, and delirium. And I think season 2 of The Sandman promises to further explore the endless, and also a mysterious member known as the Prodigal from the comics.
Okay.
And if you want to know the Prodigal's true name, spoiler alert, 3, 2, 1, destruction. Bum, bum, bum.
Okay.
So there you go.
All right.
So my guess is we'll probably
I
see
can watch that show now.
Oh, okay, exactly. It's ruined.
That.
Okay. Probably, my guess is we'll see the same actress that was playing
nice.
Despair here, playing Despair in The Sandman.
That'd
is my
be
guess.
nice.
So a little introduction to that character.
Sure.
You know, we were talking about the show tended to over-explain things, like episode 1.
Yeah.
I thought episode 7 had a fair amount of that again. Example, like it's the Cat King when he gets killed off by Esther.
Right.
And then he comes back and he goes, "That was my 3rd life, you bitch. I only get 9. I'm like, yeah, I got it. He's a cat. He has 9 lives. You just showed me a cat leaving his body and his regeneration. I think you didn't have to show and then tell. Like, anyway. So, stuff like that. It was like, okay, you know, you don't have to. They over-explained a few things over time. I think they're just being really cautious. Like, we don't want to confuse our audience, but I'd rather be a little confused than to be spoon-fed, and I feel like they were spoon-feeding at times.
Okay.
I don't know. That's just me. I don't know if you noticed that.
I didn't mind it. I mean, it was a little clumsy the way he said it, but I think at the time it was sort of like, oh, okay.
Right. I'm just that's an example. But yeah.
Because I mean, no, just because I wouldn't have said or thought, like, you know, before we saw that happen, that's how he gets his lives. So that's fine.
I got you.
So I was sort of fine with it, even though, I mean, but they do it from time to time. Yeah, they're a little clunky sometimes when they're trying to make sure that everybody sees what's going on.
So at this point, we don't know if there's going to be a season 2. I don't think
we don't know. I don't think it's been announced.
If it would take place, if there was one, I would think it would take place back in London. You'll have Edwin, Charles, Crystal, and the night nurse, you know, in their agency solving cases, or at least night nurse is somehow tangentially related.
Perhaps, but then, you know, I mean, I don't know if that would, you know, increase cost, because typically what happens is that they try to have sets continue on. That's what they make an investment in. So, you know, the fact that they're living in that place, you know, with that character in her place.
Okay. You feel like they'll stay in Port Townsend in that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, because otherwise you'd lose, you know, Tragic Mick, you know, and besides.
That's true. I'm just saying, it seemed like because he got rid of the bracelet, he resolved the thing with the Cat King.
Yeah, they could go back, you know, to their apartment. They could go back. You're right. You know, it's funny, like that all of them are. They spent all this time in the United States. It's like. Okay, you know.
Yeah. I didn't realize they were going to spend the entire time there. I thought when they went over to the States, it would be like a couple episodes, and then they jump back. Yeah. It had turned out it was a season-long arc. They dealt with the witch now, so they've kind of saved the town. So I feel like they would go back. But you're right, cost-wise, maybe that's not the thing. I feel like there would also be a mission to rescue Nico, maybe. You know, in some way.
Yeah,
she's probably hanging out in the Arctic.
Once they do, they're not going to stay there.
Right. No, they're going to solve crimes in the Arctic. There's not a lot of ghosts out here.
Yeah, well, there may be, but you know, they don't have any problems with any humans that are around.
We're solving ghosts of seals problems. But I would also think that eventually, and maybe that would be like an end of season 2 kind of thing, they would actually confront death. Like, at some point, they're going to have to, like, death shows up, they finally stop running from death, and there's some kind of a, you know, catharsis there is my guess. So maybe that's a end of season 2 kind
of. Perhaps. I mean, yeah, I'm hopefully it'd be more satisfying, at least from my, in my feeling than this sort of was. Where I mean, they sort of said, Charles has said that maybe this is a reason why he's doing it so that he can offset Edwin said. That that's why he's doing it, to offset the bad that he's done, or whatever. So
that maybe they'll take it into account when he goes back to hell.
Yeah. So,
which, by the way, hell there were some pretty grotesque scenes in hell. I will say that the room of everyone eating pastries and then just throwing up. It's like, oh my god, that was pretty gross. And then the room where everybody's just covered in blood and. Anyway, so they did some genuinely, hellish things. I also appreciated the fact that I thought it was a good choice. When Charles goes through the rooms on the way to Edwin, they're empty. Mm-hmm. And then when on the way back, Edwin says something like, it's only when you experienced hell that then you can see what's in these rooms. And so so on the way back, Charles is experiencing it. I thought that was a good use of that, because otherwise also he goes through it once and then comes back. So they gave it a different, it's a new obstacle to overcome. Mm-hmm. And it was pretty terrifying. So, well, good on him for that. Next up for us, we've got kind of a flurry of shows coming up. We will be covering The Acolyte. We will be covering The Lazarus Project Season 2. And we will be covering The House of the Dragon Season 2. Let's assume we can do all that. We're going to try.
Yeah.
So
we sacrifice one of them.
That's right. Buckle your safety belts. Here we go. So thank you as always, Paul. Appreciate it, good sir. And we'll talk to everybody next time. Bye!